What's up, everyone?
It's Dani.
And Nick.
And today we're going to be talking about the best things to see and do in Venice, Italy. Venice is going to be the place with the least amount of things to do out of our recommendations in Italy, but that does not mean that you should pass this place up. It is so spectacular and unique, and you're not going to see anything else like it in Italy, so it's definitely worth going to, and we're not just saying that because it's special in our hearts, because that's where Nicholas proposed, but it is really, really special, and you need to check it out. Now we'll list our recommendations from what we experienced the best places to see in Venice.
And this list is by no means a complete comprehensive list. It's just the things that we thought were really fun to do there. I'm sure there's plenty of other things to do that we're not going to talk about, but we had a great time, so we think you guys will too.
If you know anything about Venice, then you're probably already planning to go to our first suggestion, which is St. Mark's Basilica, because it is probably the most well-known thing to do in Venice, but it is really incredible. We both loved it, never seen anything like that before, except for Nicholas. He already saw it before because he's been there. But other than that, there's nothing else quite like it in the whole world. It's very unique, and if you're going there, make sure that you dress modestly because it is a church and you need to be respectful of that and the people surrounding you. Our biggest tip to going to St. Mark's Basilica would be to get the tickets online beforehand. We had tickets before and we still had to wait in a line. So, I mean, the line was way longer if you didn't have tickets. So to skip most of the line, get those tickets beforehand and you'll save some time, and just make sure that you show up early even if you do have tickets, because there's still going to be a little line if you go during a busy time of year.
And the Basilica is located in the middle of St. Mark's Square, which there's a ton of shops, cool little coffee places. The bell tower is there, the Doge's palace. It's all right in that center. So not only do you have the beautiful church, but you have the whole beautiful square. You have the beautiful everything. So it's a really cool place, and probably the most famous part of Venice, I would say. One of the cool little things, little gems right in St. Mark's Square is the Florian, I think it's pronounced. It's a little coffee shop. It's a really, really famous coffee shop. You're going to pay like $12 for a cappuccino, which I know is ridiculous, but it goes back to like the 17 or 1800s, maybe even the 1600s. Don't quote me on that, but there's tons of history out there of like famous people that have been there and had their coffee. So as a nerd, I wanted to go there, and I thought it was really cool. So that's one place you could check out if you're willing to go pay like a bunch of money for a cappuccino. So as I said, in St. Mark's Square, it's basically connected to the Doge's palace, which is basically the ruler of Venice at the time. That was where he lived and entertained and had his parties and stuff. It's a really, really cool place to go look at. There's, I think, a little prison in the bottom of it. Is that where the prison is? Yeah. And then it has tons of cool, artwork on the ceilings, and within the palace itself, like the ceilings are really, really ornate, and they have a lot of famous painters that I guess went into painting those. It's just a really cool thing you should check out.
Along with the ticket to Doge's Palace, you get a ticket to the Correr Museum, which I think a lot of people pass up, because when we went to check it out, just because we had a ticket there, no one else was really in there, but it was so cool because basically you have this giant museum all to yourself, and it took about an hour to walk through it all because there was so much to see, and it was enjoyable for both of us. Oh, yeah. I mean, there was so many things to see, so that was kind of like a secret gem, even though it's not secret because it's huge and you get a ticket there when you have the Doge's Palace ticket, but really a lot of people passed it up, and we're not quite sure why, because it was really cool.
I would say it's similar to the Doge's Palace, but it's definitely unique, and especially for us, since there was like hardly anyone in there, it was like a really, really neat experience. One other thing in St. Mark's Square is the bell tower. It's a few hundred feet tall, I would say. You could buy a ticket to go to the top. We didn't actually do that, but there's plenty of people that do, and you can get a really cool view of St. Mark's Square in Venice itself. So if you're willing to pay the money, I think there's a little elevator that takes you onto the top. So
it's expensive.
Yeah.
We didn't find it quite worth it, but I'm sure it would be really cool.
I will say this, if you do St. Mark's Basilica, you can go up and outside and you can still get a really, really good view of the square and other parts of Venice a little bit. You're not going to be as high as the bell tower, but you can still get pretty cool views. So I would do that first and then maybe decide if you want to get the ticket for the bell tower. Okay, so we've talked about some of the bigger attractions in Venice. One of the smaller things, less well known, is this tiny little bookstore. It's actually like a pretty famous bookstore in the world. I guess they like would call it like one of the most unique bookstores. It's got this big like gondola in the middle of the bookstore with like tons of books in it. And then if you like walk all the way to the back of the bookstore, it has this staircase of books that you can basically climb up and you can see over into the canals and see the gondolas go by. Really cool picture opportunities there. So even if you don't like books, like Danielle's not a reader.
It was really a cool place,
Yeah.
and I've never been in a bookstore like that.
And if you like to read, obviously you're going to go there and you're just going to be in heaven. But regardless, it's like definitely worth checking out. It's kind of hard to find, but you can type it in online, like famous little bookstore in Venice or something like that, and it'll come up, and just use Google Maps to get you there.
A fun day trip from Venice if you have a little spare time. We even did it in half of a day, so you don't need that much time. You can take a short 45-minute Vaporetto boat ride over to Burano, which is so unique because each building and even each house that's connected in the same building was a different color. So it's so colorful. You're walking through basically a rainbow of a city, and we had really good food and wine there. It was pretty crowded because obviously it is a touristy place to go, but not overly crowded, not enough to push us away from recommending to go there. It was very cool, and the boat ride there was really nice because you were on a big boat with other people who are going to the same place as you. So definitely a cool place to check out.
And if you like to take pictures, it's really nice as well because of all the beautiful colors.
Yes.
And I mean, it was crowded for us in the afternoon because that's when we went, but if you went early in the morning, I'm sure it'd be less crowded. And like Danielle said, it can be half a day trip if you want. You could easily spend a full day there though.
So those were our main recommendations for attractions to go and see, or day trips to go and see. But a main thing to think about when you are going to Venice, if you're coming from the airport, you're going to have to take a boat ride. So to get to the boat station from the airport, it was really easy. You just walked like 5 minutes outside of the airport into the boat station. But the line was extremely long when we were there, at least, and we had to wait about an hour to get on a boat. And if you wanted to avoid that, you could get a private taxi, but obviously it's more expensive.
A lot more expensive.
And just be mindful that the boats can be pretty rickety and bumpy. As I said, we were in a long line, so there were lots of boats on the water at the same time, passing us on both sides, going in every direction. So we were in a very crowded space, going over bumps the whole time. It wasn't unbearable, it was fine, but just if you are seasick easily or anything like that, just be aware of that. And then to get from place to place, like we said, if you go to Burano, you're gonna take a boat and you're basically surrounded by water, which makes it such a beautiful place to visit, but just be mindful about the transportation.
And it's worth like trying to get to know how the water taxis work. Because like if you want to go to Burano or any of the other places, I mean even within the canals, rather than having to walk, you can take the taxi that they have going every few minutes up the canal. So
yeah, even depending on where you're staying, you might take a boat to get to St. Mark's Basilica.
Right, and I mean it's easy because you just like a taxi or whatever on other parts of the land, you just jump on a boat and it takes you right down. So those are our recommendations and tips for planning a trip to Venice, Italy.
If you have any questions about traveling to Venice or Italy in general, please leave them in the comments below. We hope you have a great trip to Italy. And if you have any recommendations for us for our returning trips to Italy, leave them in the comments below as well. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe down below. We'll see you next time.
Bye.